Okay, Town ARB, we are live. We are recording. Phone lines will remain off. Go for it.
Thank you very much, Matt. Welcome to the October 10th meeting of the Architects Review Board of the Town of East Hampton. We had 14 applications on the agenda today. The one was recently withdrawn, so we're down to 13 now. At the end of these 13 applications, we will discuss comments to the ZBA on a demolition new build at 325 Bluff Road in Amagansett. The reason we're discussing it is that this property is part of the Bluff Road Historic District in Amagansett. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting, which was September 26th?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes approved. First order of business is under business signs. Tony's Grab and Go, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-49-3-31, 717 Montauk Highway in Montauk. And Chris, this is yours.
Okay, we've seen this application for Tony's Grab and Go sign before it was sent back them for some incomplete information to be filled in. These are the context shots. It's sort of at the beginning of the western part of Montauk downtown, which is much more freestanding elements here, John's Drive-In, gas stations, some freestanding signs also in that area, along with building mounted signs. Right after that, you get to Mr. John's Pancake House and the rest of downtown, which is much more building mounted signs. You know, driving through Amagansett, it's kind of the same way, right? Through the historic district, you get a mix of the two types of signs. This is a view of the property, and the sign is proposed to be on the corner there, freestanding 8 feet tall, white 6x6 posts, verticals, and 4x4 horizontals. There's a close-up view of where they're proposing to place it. It's a black and white square sign, 48 by 48. There it is. So the situation with it is we had asked, it was really more about, we had some comments last time. We had asked them to consider a building mounted sign, since there is considerable amount of signage space available on the building. And the Beaches and Beans, which is part of this building, does have a building mounted sign as well. But they've stuck to this sign, which, as you can see from those context shots, is, you know, it's not completely out of context. Across the street, you've got a gas station. You've got Pizza Village diagonally across. You've got, you know, and as you said, beyond, you're starting to see the downtown, which is a much more kind of dense, attached street fronts happening. So this is really right at that breaking edge. And I would say that the one thing that this sign application does not have that some of the other existing signs have, if you could go back to those two context shots, Will, is there's the 7-Eleven also, which, you know, the only chain in town, but it doesn't have a freestanding sign. This police department has a freestanding sign back there, right behind this property, the subject property. The other context shot. There you go. You can start to see, like, John's Drive-In is a good example right there, or the medical facility up in the upper right. They both have a bit of a landscape bed, probably to not only to protect the sign from people driving into it or backing into it, but also it does, as you can see from some of these shots, you know, there is a good amount of street landscaping happening in relation to signs and street frontage in this commercial district. So seeing that sign dropped into the parking lot there in the corner is a little bit abrupt, but you know, that's you can see the car that might be right about to hit it. So they have done some planting along this strip that this shot doesn't show, but I believe the context shots where the
gravel is.
Yeah. There you go. You can see in that close up. Oh no, they've taken it out. Okay. I think the older shots still had a little bit of landscape. There used to be an evergreen hedge along that street edge. It's been taken out probably for better visibility. So it's really a question. I don't think it's possible to say no, that street, freestanding signs aren't appropriate here. Whether this one seems appropriate for where it is and how it is on that property. And I would recommend, if nothing else, then just to avoid having the sign hit, that the applicant might consider keeping that 8-foot cap at the top of the sign, but maybe landscaping around it and domesticate it and create part of that, a bit of a landscape street edge there to recreate that a bit. Just, when this is, even though it's an old service station, it's still, part of that Montauk Main Street landscape.
Mm-hmm.
The applicant.
Tara.
Good afternoon, Chairman Ryan, members of the board. I'm Tara Burke from Lighthouse Land Planning, here on behalf of Tony's and the property owner of 717 Montauk Highway. Thank you, Chris, for that synopsis. I appreciate it. I'm sure, as you all remember, you had quite a few comments last time we came in, and we really tried to go down the list systematically and address those comments. The sign was reduced in the amount of verbiage and the busyness component of it. I think last time there was a smaller sign hanging underneath. There was a lot more verbiage on the sign with the hours, and it was a lot busier. So we tried to take your comments, and this actually more closely matches the one that you approved for Tony's over in the dock area. And we also reduced the height, as you had requested, from 10 feet to 8 feet. And we did submit a rendering showing it in context of the Beaches and Beans sign. And there we go. We, back to the comment of putting it on the building versus the freestanding. Thank you for all of the context setting photos, because I think those are really helpful. I actually drove through downtown Montauk again today. It's funny, even though you live there, the things that you just don't notice as you go. And on Main Street in Montauk, the majority of the businesses with freestanding signs are all corner lots. It's Air and Speed. There's John's. Yeah, thank you. Just totally drew a blank on that one. There's the Chase Bank. There's the Sands Motel, M&T Bank, Montauk Medical, the Gulf Station, Montauk Fuels at the end of town, which was Martell's, the police department. Then you go down at the docks, and there's Tony's, the Viking, the Dock Restaurant, the Finn. There's quite a few, but specifically on Main Street in downtown Montauk, they tend to be on the corner, situated similar to that one. And I hear Chris's comment about the landscaping. Our intention with this site, just so you understand the full scope of work here, is to go to the planning board for site plan approval to restripe the parking lot and do some landscaping, make it a bit more attractive. It's very similar to the 7-Eleven. When the 7-Eleven came in, that was a gas station previously. And so you can actually change as of right from the gas station to retail, believe it or not, in our code. So we've done that, and we want to get the signage up for obvious reasons, for the sake of the business, so that everyone knows they're there. And then our intention, because the site plan process takes some time, and that will be ultimately in front of you, because that's changes to commercial, to stripe the parking lot and sort of beautify the property, similarly to what 7-Eleven did when they came in. So that's kind of the larger plan. We have no problem adding some sort of landscaping below the signage. I think on an initial rendering with the last one, there actually was sort of a little grass patch. But, because we'd like to do that as part of a bigger plan, we're happy to do something in the interim that maybe we could adjust once that full site plan comes in.
Is the sign up? Are we looking at
That's a rendering.
It's a rendering.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think you're rendering.
The car would hit it if it was there.
Yeah. I mean, I
The
think
car wouldn't be
the
there.
the way the sign's presented, it's 8 feet tall, and you say, well, that's really high, but
Right.
it's 4 feet off the ground, so it has to be about 4 feet off the ground. And then the sign itself is 4 feet, so it looks like it looms in this image, but the image isn't real, so
Right,
I don't
it's
think
hard
it's going to
to,
appear quite as tall as it looks.
And that's also why the landscape, the kind of like a raised
Would help.
bed would,
Yeah,
would
would
protect
soften
it
that.
and also make it not so looming above the ground, I think.
sure, similar to the one at John's Drive-In,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Frank, your comments?
I have no objection to it.
Kathy?
Okay with it.
I'm okay with it. Diane?
Yeah, I agree with Chris that, you could use a little
Yeah,
buffer.
so
Yeah, that's a good idea, but if they're gonna do site plan, sounds like they've got a whole other plan in place. I wouldn't trouble them to
No,
landscape it now if they're going to do another.
I think we can,
If that's the intention, we might include that in the resolution that we didn't suggest landscaping around the sign because the applicant is proposing a broader landscaping plan that's, yes, has to receive site plan, yeah.
okay.
then I'd like to make a motion that we approve the sign application as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous? Okay.
Great, thank you.
Derek.
Can we skip to the CO for the same
You want to
building?
do the CO?
That would be
That
great
would
if
be,
you don't mind.
that'd be nice for you, right? You have to sit here till the end of the meeting. This is an easy one.
So we're under C of O's, 717 Montauk Highway, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-49-3-31. Kathy, this is yours.
Yeah, it's in. So this is a certificate of occupancy to paint the exterior of the building, Sherwin-Williams SW 7006 extra white, and the building is white. The other qualification on this was the approval of the paint color to modify the exterior. In no way inhibits any other agency or board from exercising its purview over this application. I think this meets the criteria. It meets, what the resolution said it was. And if nobody has any questions, does anybody have any questions or comments? It's certainly white.
Looks fine.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to instruct staff to notify the building department this applicant has satisfied the conditions and substantially conforms, excuse me, to the resolution dated June 24th, 2022, and a certificate of occupancy can be issued.
Second.
I'll second.
Diane, all in favor? Aye. Aye, so passed.
All right.
Thanks, Derek.
Great.
You bet.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Back to the schedule, change to commercial, the Mara Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-49-6-26, 21 Ocean View Terrace in Montauk. Kathy, this is also yours. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so this was at 21 Ocean View Terrace. This was, you may recall, this was the, there were 8-foot doors that were put in this area in the storefront, doors and windows, which were approved at 6 feet 8 inches, but were actually 8 feet high. There should be other photos that show the, yeah, there you go. And I went out and measured we saw this a couple of months ago. And the problem was at the time, I can't imagine that well, anyway, they look fine at 8 feet. I think they're appropriate. But the plans did not identify them correctly. On the architectural plans, identified them as 6 feet 8 inches. So we couldn't approve it as built because the plans were incorrect. So that has been corrected. The plans are properly identified, and I think it looks fine, and I think we should approve it.
Laura, do you have anything you want to add?
Just that we need the CO.
Yep, we'll do both.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks.
So they need to modify, so we have to modify the approval because the 6 foot 8 was incorrect, and we need to, so we'll do that and then go on to the
Yep.
CO. Okay, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve this modification as proposed.
All in favor?
Second, you need a second.
I'll second.
Unanimous? Okay, so approved. Now we're going to go to their C of O, Mara Montauk, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 300-49-6-26, 21 Ocean View Terrace in Montauk. Kathy?
Okay, well, this would be an amended resolution, I guess, right? Because the resolution that I have here is not the one that we just passed the modification for. But right, Charlie? What do we do here?
So you just made a vote.
So you can-
To modify, so we're just gonna.
You
That's
can
today.
say,
And the modified resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just refer to that instead of this reso. Okay. So, I'd like to make a motion to instruct staff to notify the building department this applicant has satisfied the conditions and substantially conforms to the ARB approval of the resolution dated today, which is October 10th, thank you, 2024. And a certificate of occupancy can be issued.
Second,
Second.
Diane, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So passed.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Lori.
Oh, wait a minute. Do I have the right ones?
Okay, still under change to commercial, 71 South Emerson LLC, it's an office, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-50-1-14. This is 71 South Emerson Avenue in Montauk. Chris, this is yours.
Okay, we've seen this and the property across the street recently and approved the essentially facelift change of the palette of materials. And this is a pretty much a super straightforward application. You see the little building there with the bay front that's in the foreground. They left it out of the application.
Oh.
And they want to do the same thing. Same materials, same palette, dark windows, light siding to match.
Nice, yeah.
So, unless anybody has any problems, I would like to make a motion to approve this application as submitted.
Second.
Kathy, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so passed.
Okay.
Okay, moving right along. Fences, walls, gates, and berms. This is Neil Straw, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-126-1-14.42. This is 11 Southwood Court in Amagansett. Kathy, this is yours.
Okay. Sorry, let me just grab this application out. This application is to approve some fencing, and there was a set of steps that entered into the right-of-way. We looked at this it's over a year ago, really. I think it was Frank's application initially. And yeah, let me see. Yeah, so it's Southwood Court to legalize an existing deer and wire fencing, but when we went to the site, we saw that there were a bunch of other things that were not on the survey. And so a survey has been submitted that shows everything correctly. The pedestrian gate is a little high. It's a little over 6 feet. The gate leaf is 6 feet, 2.5 inches. The posts are 6 feet, 6.5 inches. It's really not visible. I mean, and there's so much planting. It's uncharacteristic of me not to go with a 6-foot gate leaf. But you just can't see this from any place, and the vegetation is quite mature. If you could just go to that first slide, or not the first one, the one with the fence. Yeah, okay, so there's cattle guard there, and yeah, that one. So one of the questions that Frank had when he first brought this to us is that the 6 feet deer fencing is on top of this wall, which makes it's set back in a bit, but it does make it quite high. Again, it's very...
What fencing? Discreet?
My point, yes, you took the words right out of my mouth. You can't really see the fencing discreet. Yeah, I guess it's discreet. You just can't see it. So I don't really see but again, I would not normally approve 6-foot fencing in the front yard on top of a wall that's almost 3 feet high. But I think that this is, the mature landscaping helps to keep it blended in. And this is a very, it's not a street that has a lot of public views. It's Southwood Court. It's got one of these these big pillars that only one car can fit through. So even if you live there and someone's on their way in, you got to back out to let the next guy, it's very lightly traveled road. So it doesn't fit the criteria, to my mind, of the, walled in views of the public vistas that were meant to be, discouraging. So,
I looked at the history of this. This was part of the Bell Estate subdivision. It was supposed to become a public road. The town did not take it on as a public road, so it's now a private road. So the town road department feels they have no authority over some of these infractions.
oh, okay, that was the other thing I meant to mention, because Julie, I think, said that we got a letter from the highway department that those steps, these must be your pictures, Frank. You can see those steps off to the right there that would be normally in the public right of way.
And they are in the public right of way,
right.
But it's not a public road.
Correct. So I think, where all our initial observations were good ones, but not knowing that it wasn't a public road, I guess, makes it, it looks so different in the, without the foliage.
Yeah, but it still doesn't,
No.
you see the posts a bit more, but,
Yes. Yeah. And that pedestrian gate is kind of in the back. If you would take those steps up, it kind of curves around a little bit, so you really can't even see that. I would recommend that we just approve it. I don't see the point of, any modifications to this.
was there ever an application for a gate at the driveway?
Not that I know of, but there's not a gate there. Those two, yeah, that's interesting. There are those two big pillars which are both 6 feet over the cattle guard. There's cattle guard there. I had a better close up of that. Well, maybe you could go back to my photos.
Maybe the cattle guard took the place of the gate.
If you would, yeah, see those posts, but there's no gate and there was no application for one that I saw. I don't think they need it with the cattle guard there.
Well, yeah, the greenery and the walls keep it tight so they can't walk around it.
Right. Anyway, so do you have anything you want to add? Because you were familiar with this.
To the left of the driveway, I think, is the fencing still in front of, was it moved or is it still in front of the hedge?
Still in front of the hedge.
I mean, my feeling about this is I feel similar to you, but as I've said about other applications, because it's written and it becomes part of the CO, is that there's nothing legally to prevent someone to remove the planting, which then it becomes a visual issue.
It becomes a visual.
So,
yeah, that's a good point.
I don't know if there's a way to, I'm willing to grant it, but I'm willing to grant it only if
On that
there is condition that there is.
I wonder if
Vegetation.
there's anything in the bylaws of the subdivision that might preclude leaving taking out landscape. It's hard to know, but it's also
Was there a memo from the planning department?
Generally, we don't get
Just so you're aware, the last meeting we had, you asked that the 6-foot fencing on top of the wall be cut down, and we did do that.
Oh, okay, great.
Yes, you can see it right there. That's 4 feet on top of the
It's
wall.
6 feet, yeah, okay. Okay, so I guess the real issue, so that, as I said, that looks fine. But I guess the real issue, which Frank is bringing up, and I agree with him, is that if the vegetation goes away, because you can even see the difference between my photos and his photos, which are at the time of year when things are in bloom and the time of year when they're not, that you can see the fence more clearly in the winter. So if we're going to approve it, maybe if we can condition it on having some vegetation.
I think my clients intend to keep the vegetation.
Well, we wouldn't be approving a 6-foot fence anyway if it's been cut down to 4 feet.
It's been cut
in
down.
which case we have
But it is
on top of the wall.
It's on top of the wall.
more than 4 feet above natural grade.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yes, exactly.
That was the issue that I came
But it
across.
doesn't read like a 6-foot stockade fence.
Because it's also set back, it's back.
And
for
Charlie,
5
maybe you could clarify this because it's
So the building department, and Lori can speak to it too. I just spoke with Joe. The position of the building department is when it comes to like retaining walls and fencing, is they don't impute the height of the retaining wall to the fence. If it's set back from the wall itself, the retaining wall, in this case, it's set back about a foot. So it's not like a sheer, it's kind of step back like this. So it becomes a separate structure in and of itself. And so it's Now it's really just the height of that fence
Above.
by itself,
So you
above the
consider
retaining
the
wall.
grade,
above whatever grade it's at.
I
I
see,
don't, I
okay,
don't, you would have to go to the site.
right.
It's hard to, I mean, yeah.
On this site, it
Well-
reads like a berm and you can't put a fence on top of a berm.
Yeah, could you go to the picture of
It's
the,
okay how it is now. I'm just saying it's not a 4-foot
yeah,
legal fence.
right. See there, it's set back, 3 or 4 feet, but it is
So maybe they
definitely.
moved it. So,
I don't
so-
think so, but.
I don't believe it
raises
moved
the
it.
question, do they need approval? It's 4 feet
If
in the
it's 4
front yard.
feet, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Well, we have the other items too.
Yeah, I'm
But
just saying
this
this part.
is the one that's
Fence.
causing a debate, yeah.
If it conforms to zoning, then
Oh, then they don't need our approval.
that would be up to, you can give an approval and the building department can require it.
What
Okay.
about the gate, that
Yeah.
pedestrian gate,
Mhm.
that part of us
If
too,
that's 6 feet, then it would.
in the front yard?
What did you say, Charlie? I'm sorry, I
If
didn't
it's,
hear you.
if it's over 4 feet, it needs ARB approval. The gate does.
Yes,
If the fencing was 4 feet, maybe you don't need it.
But the gate is,
The gate's 6 feet and that's not wired.
the gate leaf is 6 feet and the posts are 6.5,
Yes, I think
basically.
the posts are the problem.
Yeah, they're high.
We've been stringent on other,
We have, yeah,
so I think maybe the whole thing can be no higher than 6 feet.
okay. We could do that.
We
We
just
just
cut
bring the
tops
post down.
off.
Yeah, it's not going to be a critical problem.
And the steps were,
The steps were, well, because I mean, the highway department doesn't object to it because it's not a public road. If it was a public road, then I feel like we don't have jurisdiction over it because it's not really a right of
Don't even
way.
look at those.
And it's typical.
Don't even look at those.
now, what about the?
What did you say, Charlie? I'm
I
sorry.
wouldn't, those are just don't even, that is nothing. That doesn't need a building permit. That needs no approvals from anybody. That's just that's a landscape feature now.
Go for the post. Go for the post. Okay.
okay. Chris?
Well,
Yeah, we can't approve anything over 6 feet, so.
Yeah, so, okay, so let's deal with it.
wait, so it's,
Yeah.
we can have a 6-foot gate here? No.
You can have a 6-foot
We
gate,
can
but you
permit
can't
a
have
6-foot
We can
6
gate.
permit it, yeah.
Yeah.
We can permit a 6-foot
But
gate, but
not
not
any more?
6'6".
but no more, and the posts have to be cut down.
We're proposing that we leave the gate leaf the gate leaf is 6 feet, 2.5 inches. It's not 6 feet. It has that little thing on top. So maybe if we just ask them to bring the whole thing down to 6 feet, that way it's more consistent.
However they do it, I'm fine with the design, just like bring down,
Cut the
We
top
have
off.
to.
cut the top and just
off
say,
that.
I mean, if they want to cut the bottom and bring the whole thing down to 6 feet, just say, I would say like the existing design down to 6 feet. They could cut the top, they
Yeah.
can cut the bottom,
Okay.
and the post as
All
well.
right, that's a good suggestion.
Chris, you're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Also, there is a fence and a gate. Did you see this that goes to the side of the house? I think there was a photo.
Mhm.
Can you go back? I
more
can't
like a
recall what the height was. I
trellis.
thought it was like 8 feet.
Last
Can you go
time you
back
said that
to
you were
my
okay with it.
photos, Will?
But
Yeah.
if it's
Last time you said you were fine with it because it's not visible from the public at all,
jurisdiction of that?
and it's not in the
So
front
it's
yard.
6 feet, I would
It's
think.
not in the front yard, then
Oh, it's not in the
Okay.
front yard.
it's not ours.
That's part of the reason I didn't,
Yeah, I mean, like it's.
Unless that's in the front.
I don't know if that's.
That's the side yard and it's a
It's
trellis.
in the rear yard. I mean, I guess you could
It's more than 6
consider
feet.
that like a arbor too. I mean,
It's what it is, it's not the gate.
it's not, it's like a, yeah.
If it's not in the front, if it's not in front of the front yard setback.
It's more than 6 feet. I could go back.
it's more than 6 feet. Yeah, no, Frank is right. It's closer to 8 feet, but the thing I'm trying to understand is if we had begun, if it's beyond the facade of the house, I mean,
It's not in the front yard.
It's not in the front yard setback.
the point I'm making is if it's not in the front yard,
Consider part of the fence.
behind the facade, you can go as high as 8,
So you
but
could
it would
approve
need
that,
our approval,
even if you,
right?
I mean, I could,
It's this.
Yeah.
I would ask Joe.
Higher
about
than
that
6.
personally.
No, 100%, because this is 6 feet.
No, this part's higher than 6.
On the survey, it says it's 7 feet 6.
The whole
But
apparatus?
the arbor part on top of the gate itself is 6,
Yeah, okay.
which is more of a landscape feature than it is a fence. And it's not in the front yard.
Why don't we just approve it?
Well, yes, that's, the reason I didn't take photographs of it is because I felt that I didn't think it was in our,
Well, Lori said we were okay with it last time.
whatever. I'm just trying to, be clear about what we're evaluating and why. So,
I mean, the building department,
I would, if you're unsure on what you could ask the building department to give an interpretation of what he thinks that is. If the building inspector thinks that is a fence or a gate, then yes. If he thinks it's like as Lori said, a pergola or a trellis that's a separate structure, then it can be as tall as you want it to be.
okay.
Here's
And
my,
in the front, and it's not in the front yard, you can approve up
Or
to
you
8
just
feet.
approve it up to 8 feet.
Why
If
don't we
you,
just
yeah.
approve it?
well, hang on. Here are my notes from June 8th last year when I had this. There is a wood fence approximately 6'4" to the east of the house with a gate and a pergola above that is approximately 7'6". So that's a 6'4" fence, not 6 feet.
But it's not in the front yard.
It's a 6'4" fence. That's all I'm saying. It's
Yeah,
not
no, I understand.
6 feet.
Yeah, okay.
If it was Frank's application, why isn't it still?
Yeah, I'm not sure why it was given to me, but yeah, this is where we are.
you inherited it.
I
I
did.
didn't want to do one.
Okay, let's,
Okay, well, I would like to recommend that we ask the applicant to bring the pedestrian gate and the posts down to 6 feet. And that we just, we approve, all the other aspects of this. And unless the board feels otherwise, I would be willing to allow that to permit the pergola and the 6'4" fence in the rear side yard there, to stay as is. We can request, an interpretation from the building, department on whether that's a pergola or a gate.
well, Frank said it was a gate when you.
It was like a gate with a little pergola on it.
Yeah, it's both things. It's
Yeah.
both things. So,
We can approve it.
I think we just.
but my impulse is to approve it because it is not visible. It doesn't, it's unusual for me to do this, as all of you know, but it's just, this is so not part of the public vista that I don't see it as a problem. So that would be my recommendation.
I agree, Dan, Chris, we all.
I agree.
Okay, yeah. it
Okay.
seems to be that good then. Okay.
Motion?
So you can make a motion, Jen.
Well, don't they have to come back to us with a 6-foot gate? We're gonna approve it conditioned on a submission with a 6-foot gate, because right now the survey has this gate at this height, and
We have to fix it before we do a CO inspection.
that's,
I think we can approve it on
okay,
condition.
that works for
We
me.
have
All right, so,
the three aspects, the front fence, the 6'4", 6'6" gate, and the trellis on the side.
Yeah.
yeah.
Some deer fencing too.
Deer
What did Charlie say? I can't hear him.
deer fencing in the back as well.
Yeah,
But that's 8 feet?
well, it's existing deer
so
fencing.
it's
Yeah,
fine.
so I'd like to propose that we approve this application for the existing deer fencing, including the piece in the front that's on that stone wall, and the fencing that's in the rear yard with the gate and pergola, and ask the applicant to come back to us with a 6-foot pedestrian gate and posts in the front yard
As a condition of approval.
as a condition of approval.
Great.
Does that work, Charlie?
Yep.
Okay.
Second.
Second,
I'll second.
Chris is second, all in favor? Aye.
Okay.
So passed.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Great. Is that the last one on that page?
Okay. Okay, item number 5 has been removed from our schedule tonight.
Okay.
We're up to extensions of time. The first one is Michael Davis Construction, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-197-3-2. This is 407 Montauk Highway in Wayne, Scott. This is mine. So this is a request for an extension of time for signage for one of two buildings owned by Michael Davis at the intersection of Sayers Path and Route 27 in Waynescott. Our initial resolution dated June 8th, 2020, and was good for 3 years. After several proposals for a freestanding sign for this building and discussions with the board at previous meetings, the applicant has opted for a 60-inch by 45-inch sign attached to the building. And this is the second building, not the one on the corner, but the one in. They're highly related. At slightly less than 20 square feet, it's actually 18 feet. 0.75. It is well under the 32 square foot maximum limit. Next door at the corner, number 411 has similar signage, and that's a freestanding sign that we approved long ago. So that's the sister sign.
Yeah.
We were against having them have two freestanding signs, so that's how this came about. As there is no lighting on the sign at number 407 and is attached to the 407 building, I see no reason to request lighting specs and a new survey pertaining to this. So I think it's fine as it is, and we can approve it, and they can get the extension of time, and then they can come back and file for a CBO.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye. So I make a motion to approve this application as submitted for an extension of time.
I'll second that.
Second by Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed unanimously. Thank you. Extension of time, number 7. This is 55 Waynescott Hollow, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-196-1-18. This is 59 Waynescott Hollow Road in Waynescott. And Frank, this is yours.
Okay, and I'll say to the board that this is going to segue into an ag overlay application. So this is an application for an extension of time. It does property at 59. I'm going to read to you the resolution dated from September 10th, 2020. The board approved the relocation of this residence, 2,068 square foot residence, from 55 Waynescott Hollow Road to 59 Waynescott Hollow Road. All elements of the existing residential structure will remain, with the exception of the front and side porches, which will rebuild exactly as they were at the new location. The front door is to be replaced and will include side lights as per the plans submitted. So the house was relocated. So it's before us to do an extension of time from this 2020 resolution to relocate the house. Clearly, the front and side porches were apparently not. The property has basically been neglected a bit. And so it wasn't fully fulfilled, but my understanding is we need to approve the extension of time to proceed with the next step for this, which is, it's an application for this property, which is technically a modification
Of the original
of
approval.
this original approval. So I would encourage the board to just approve this extension of time so we
Yeah,
can
it sounds
consider
sensible. Yeah.
this. So I'm making a motion to approve the extension of time for the resolution dated September 10th, 2020.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimously passed.
Okay.
Make sure somebody's here.
Okay, do we have an applicant? Okay. So the way this works typically, someone on the board will do an introduction about the property, and then we'll give you an opportunity to speak and make sure you introduce yourself.
Absolutely.
Do that.
Maybe you have to read it to the record.
Sure.
Yep.
So we're now into agricultural overlays. This is a 55 Waynescott Hollow modification, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-196-1-18. And this is at 59 Waynescott Hollow Road in Waynescott. Frank, it's yours.
Okay. And Will, you went through all the photographs of that. So if you want to bring up the architectural plans and just run through them as I'm talking here. So this is an application to build a two-story residence along the east side of Wainscott Hollow Farm in a very visible area of Wainscott. This application is before us because it sits within an agricultural reserve. This application technically modifies a project located within the agricultural overlay. During approval was granted to relocate the building. The original project involved relocating the residence from 55 Wainscott Hollow Road to its present location at 59 Wainscott Hollow Road, even though this is still called 55 Wainscott Hollow Road.
Okay.
The lot was created as part of the 55 Wainscott Hollow subdivision for our planning memo. This existing two-story house, as I said before, is actually 2,085 gross square feet, according to the planning department. What is being proposed is to increase the gross square footage to 3,587, which is 3 square feet less than the maximum allowable GFA. This is technically a modification of the existing house, but it seems to me in reality, given the state of the house, it will be demolished and rebuilt in kind. Perhaps but I'll let you speak to this, with the exception of the additions and add-ons. The site is currently visible from public vantage points on Wainscott Hollow Road, and the proposed front porch will be visible from the road if constructed. The proposed two-story addition may be visible from the road due to its location adjacent to open farmland. However, as the addition is sited behind the existing house, and it's less prominent from Wainscott Hollow Road. To remind everyone, I think we're familiar with this. The site's surrounded by agricultural fields to the north, south, and east, and Wainscott Hollow Road on the west. Yeah, the applicant is proposing the maximum height actually to come down about 11 inches from 29 feet. Excuse me, from 30 feet 2 inches to 29 feet 2 1/4. Part of this application is also for fencing and a generator. I'm not going to go into the weeds of that right now, though it does say the planning department recommends that should the ARB choose to grant approval to this application, the board should include as a condition of approval that if the generator location is modified due to noise concerns, this board will require our board again for a new location. So I have some thoughts about this, and I'm curious to hear what the board has to say, but I'd like you to, if you'd like to, walk through what's being proposed here architecturally.
Yeah, so my name is David Martins. I'm the principal architect for Architects MAD. So for this project, the client is really important, really does find the historical nature of the existing house and wants to maintain it as much as possible, and understands the nature of Wainscott, of its original inception, which is why the client is really pushing towards getting a very traditional farm style house being built here too. So if you go to one of the actually front elevations, if you don't mind. So the rendering's fine. Yeah, perfect. So for this house itself, we're actually not going to take down the existing house. The reason is not, it's less because of the exterior, it's more of the interior. The existing house was built with old construction, so there's existing hand-hewn timber in it with timber beams, timber rafters. So we want to try to maintain that as much as possible, just for the interior nature of the house itself. So we're talking about building a secondary roof on top of it, so we could do some actual proper insulating of the house while maintaining the existing characteristics, the historical characteristics of this house. The house is actually not a historical house, but we see the importance of some of these older historical building methods used to build this house, that we want to maintain it throughout. The house is actually situated pretty far off of the front road itself, and keeping that in mind, we decided to add the addition to the home to the rear of the property instead of affecting the view from the road itself, while maintaining this very farmhouse historical significance that Wainscott is known for. Trying to think what else may be.
But you are adding on the side. I mean, you're saying it's not visible. You're adding on the back, but you are adding to the side of the house.
Yeah, we're adding the second story addition over an existing one story to the left of it. Yes, and we're adding the open porches in the front and the side as well. The front porch, I believe, adds a nice character to the house. Instead of having a larger two-story sheer wall, it breaks the massing of the house, softens up the material a little bit, even though we are going to be using cedar both in the roof and in the siding to keep with the nature, the traditional style of the home. And of course, Alaskan yellow cedar, allowing it to weather and to gray out, so it just vanishes and fits nicely with its surrounding area.
So this was part of the development of those farm fields with other new houses that we've talked to a lot. Were you required to restore this house as part of that deal, or are you just doing this out of the goodness of your heart?
I'm not familiar with that. That was involved during the original subdivision back in, I believe, in 2020, I want to say.
It was my impression that the house was to be moved so it could be restored.
That's my recollection.
Does anyone?
I wasn't on the board of the
That sounds familiar, but I don't have
But I
that.
mean,
I need to get the.
It does sound from the intent of the resolution that is, I mean, we're modifying the resolution that it's worded in such a way that the architectural nature of this house will remain intact.
Mm-hmm.
So you're proposing to modify that so it is stating in the existing resolution that we're supposed to adhere to that.
So I guess my response to that is we're trying to maintain as much of the existing house as possible, while also still, of course, trying to allow for more space to be added onto it, while also trying to maintain at least the facade of it within the street where the majority of the people will be visiting the house will still remain the same.
Okay. Can we first go to...
I remember this house when it was a farm, and you moved it down the road, so we're able to build this development with these 5 or 6 other houses. I don't remember the house looking anything like this, and I think maybe we need to go back and look at that original subdivision and see what the deal was when it was agreed that those new houses could be built if this house was restored. I don't get the sense that you're even thinking about restoring it. You're thinking of altering it for maximum sale price or maximum usage. So I don't know. I think we have to go delve into those documents. Will, do you have those documents? Or
I might be.
Charles looking at them?
Also, while we're doing this, maybe Will, could you move to page 16 of this, which is drawing A200? I want to ask about a certain roof line. These are the electrical. The next page, probably.
like a beacon.
Yeah, the bottom right. Zoom in on the roof proposed there. So this is one other thing I would notice is that you're proposing, this is the north side, Wainscott Hollow Road is on the right. You're proposing a flat roof 2-story addition where it appears the roof is actually beyond the pitched roof.
Yeah, we'd have to do some flashing on the side of it to allow for that maximum build out.
I mean, I'll say off the bat, to me, that's a no-go architecturally.
Same.
Yeah, we could offset it in so at least it goes within the gable.
I mean, overall, my impression of I'm more concerned with the additions to the south and to the north. To me, the north addition, it doesn't seem to me that that it really works with the existing house. It just seems to be like a block addition, and I don't mean this sort of personally, but it just sort of looks like not a lot of thought's been given to it.
I feel the same way.
The other side will continue the other elevation, or maybe let's go to the rendering. That's a better way to see it.
Left piece.
I mean, also the roof lines aren't in. It's a little bothersome that they're not in the same elevation. But considering that that's a minor comment,
Yeah.
but considering like the context of wainscot, I struggle to see something like a two-story porch like this. To me, this is something more I would see in
Charleston.
exactly on Kiowa Island than like a developer in South Carolina than I would see in Wainscott, particularly at something like a cedar farmhouse like this. The nature of this house seems to be changing considerably. I think this board could work with the addition out the back.
Mm-hmm.
My feeling is because it seems pretty easy to kind of match the architecture, make it work, but it just seems to be there's almost like an antebellum feeling of this architecture that just is not in keeping with the context.
Oh, I understand.
Interesting to, I don't know if there are any photos of how this was before the move, before they demolished the side and front
We'd have to look at that.
porches that were supposed to be, that were supposed to be returned,
Right.
restored.
Built in kind, yeah, rebuilt in kind, yeah.
Because I don't think it was a porch all the way across the
Probably
front.
not that, yeah.
From that image, it looks like, at least it looks like it was just like a gabled porch off the front of it from the original image.
I'll also say the front elevation, can we go to that, the rendering of that? Yeah. To me, this is also I think what's bothering me is the low railing. That's not something you typically see here. That's something you may see in more like Southern architecture. On the ground floor, you were more likely to see, you wouldn't see anything. You would just have the columns.
Yeah, as per code, it's not required. We thought it adds a nice, it grounds the house a little, we thought, the railing, but if that's something the board is not super keen on, it's something I could see it disappearing.
I think that this, to speak to Frank's point about the roof lines on the left of there, on the north elevation, that rendering doesn't actually accurately show the kind of little snaggletooth of roof that you'd have coming in front of the gate of the pitched roof. It looks like it's tucked behind the rake of the roof, but it's not. It's coming out. So you'd see a little triangle of that roof. In reality,
I think it's very odd for that addition on the left to have a flat roof. These farmhouses were concerned about snow. They would not have built flat roofs. So
Yeah.
I want to pull the file when the subdivision was approved and see what the restrictions were on this property specifically, because if there are restrictions, I just want to make sure we're all aware of them.
Okay.
Okay.
I totally understand. Yeah, the reasoning for the flat roof is of course, the porch along the heighted porch along the right-hand side, it's off the master suite. So we were thinking giving the master suite some covered outdoor area that's the reasoning for it. And we were trying to create a mimicking of it, almost like a center hall colonial where things start lining up and it's very symmetrical and matches. So that was the concept for the flat roof.
But usually those roofs would be gable roofs. They wouldn't be flat roofs.
Yeah, I believe there's a sky exposure plane issue on the left-hand side. So might throw that off a little bit. But if we start shrinking it in a little bit so it goes within the gable, then that becomes a non-issue anymore.
So what do we want to do?
I think
I think we need to do some research on this
Yeah.
We
project.
need to do research, and I haven't heard from I don't know, can't recall if everybody on the board has spoken to it, but I think there's a feeling that the architecture isn't contextual. I think I would suggest going back and look at these comments, and there are various things about the the south addition, the north addition, the railing on the front. We haven't even talked about the side lights to be added to the side of the door.
That was in the original resolution. Front door and the side lights were mentioned, yeah.
Okay.
But that's all that was mentioned.
Right, I mean, I think we excuse me, just renewed the extension of time on the original approval, which was for the house as existed to just have the porches replaced. So this modification is much different, and I think the chair is spot on we need to do that research because
I don't believe, I have to confirm with the planning department, I don't believe that it has to be preserved for the subdivision.
but I think it's important. I mean, this
Shall remove or relocate to one of the proposed lots all the existing on-site structures which are labeled as existing structures.
all existing.
Plan. What's the resolution that we just talked about? Are you
It's
reading?
so prominent, the placement of this house, and the fact that you can almost see it from it stands alone, and it sort of needs to have some dignity.
I think the more modern 4/1 light pattern is also, it throws it off.
That's a good point.
I believe it's actually the existing windows that are there now. We're trying to sort of not reuse them, but like give an homage to the original house, where the original house happens to have that style of window.
Right. Having a lot of trouble with the.
Okay, so let's,
If I understand correctly, the board's having a bigger issue with definitely those two additions to the left and right, whether it be the open porch and the side porch. And so,
Right.
yeah, I'll go back to the client. Maybe I could ask him to relocate one of those additions to the rear of the house, because if I understand correctly, we're okay with the eastern addition to the house.
We really haven't discussed it. Just sort of contextually that is going out the backside of the building, so it will be visible from properties to the north that are being constructed, basically those across the field. And it's likely to be somewhat screened, but again, we haven't talked about it. It's not to say that we're okay with it. It's just saying, I think if this house is to be expanded, that it's a logical way to expand the house while perhaps retaining the architecture of the existing house, if the board were to feel comfortable with even going down that path.
Yeah.
But I think the board is starting to get wary of.
well, there's two things. What's required by the original subdivision, and then what's appropriate for the Waynescott community. And I think on both cases, we need to do some more research, but I don't think this strikes us as an appropriate house for an historic Waynescott farm field. And so I think there'll be some back and forth between us on that. Okay.
Totally expected.
Okay.
I think, first of all, if the board this is my view, if the board were to consider an expansion to the south of a porch, to me, the second floor, I wouldn't approve the second floor. I might consider a first floor porch without a low railing.
Yeah, let's see what the original, we can pull some photographs of this house before it was moved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
Thank you very
good.
much.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay. Still an agricultural overlay. This is the Talmadge residence, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-185-4-1. This is 37 Long Lane in East Hampton. Chris, this is yours and mine. I'm going to say a few things. So this is an application to add a modest shed dormer to the central block of this ranch house, and the central block is that larger portion where the chimney is. This is on a private lane across from the high school on Long Lane. The approximately 8-acre property has long been owned by the Talmadge family. It was divided into 5 lots, 4 building lots, 1 agricultural lot in 1989. 3 family houses were then built for different family members. This one is at the very end of that lane, and it's pretty invisible from any public vantage point. It is surrounded on 3 sides by protected agricultural fields. Applicants, that's the lane going down from the high school. Applicant seeks to create an 847 square foot additional living space on the second floor with an open kitchen, dining room, living room, and a bedroom with bath and a laundry room. All this would fall under the newly approved auxiliary apartment regulations. The purpose is to provide a space to care for an elderly relative, and down the road, maybe to provide housing for a home care aid for the current residents. So they're thinking about taking care of themselves and their family going forward. The only extensive change to the house is the modest dormer. There you see it. It's on the central block. It's lower than the roof ridge. The other changes would be a door added to the left of the central block on the first floor, a stoop that we required when this came before us, I think in June, and 1 dark sky appropriate light fixture to light this door that would lead up to this auxiliary apartment. In summary, this is a thoughtful way to allow flexibility in our housing stock as residents seek to age in place in their own homes. This modest change to the existing house allows this to happen. To see this kind of addition in an agricultural reserve area is actually a thing we applaud. We're usually dealing with massive structures. Chris, if I've missed anything, fill us in.
That's exactly right. You nailed it.
Okay. So when do you see an 847 square foot addition in an agricultural reserve?
Yeah, plus you can't even see this.
You can't see it from anywhere, yeah.
I've been back and forth without high school 1,000 times.
And I always wondered what was down this road. Yeah, me too.
I know the family, but anyway, it's just, you can't see
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
A lot of lawnmowers.
So
No, it's great. I think it's a great idea.
it's fabulous. Everyone okay? Chris, Diane? Mhm. Okay.
This is your dad's house? Your dad built it?
Yeah.
Your dad built the house, yeah.
Well, my father was the original architect in the early 80s.
Yeah, and they put framing in so they could actually build this second floor.
Yeah.
Steve was telling me,
That's
so
right.
it was kind of prepared for this to happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so I make a motion to approve this application as submitted.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Okay. We're now up to Waynescott Colors LLC, a modification. This is Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-202-1-5. This is 120 Town Line Road, Waynescott. Diane, this is yours, and is Britton here? You're for Britton? Okay, great. So Diane will talk first, then we'll ask you to fill in. I need to recuse myself. Okay, Frank will recuse himself for a client situation.
Okay, well, can we see the photograph before that one, Will? Yes. This gives a sense of where it is, because when you hear 121 Town Line Road, it's a little misleading, because this house, I'm standing on Wainscott Main Street and looking across the pond, and this is the house in question. You arrive on Town Line Road, and you proceed down the flaggiest flag lot, or the longest driveway on the planet, I think. It's actually very, very beautiful. And you wind up at this home that is on the ocean and overlooks Wainscott Pond. So it is a very idyllic and sensitive place, and the house is absolutely wonderful. So you arrive, and there's a courtyard, and this house is on the ocean, and there are buildings to the right and left and behind you, so it's sort of a quad. Now, the application before us, a year ago we granted an extension of time, and the application before us now is for 3 modifications.
To what was already approved.
To what was already approved. 3 modifications. Go to the next picture, please, Will. Well, these are just pictures to show the detail of the house and how everything is extremely particular and well maintained and well thought out. It's a very particular and very minimal modernist
Beach house.
Yeah, beach house, a great beach house. Anyway, okay, so when you're facing the house, to the right is this building that is they call it a breezeway. And what the modification is for are for glass doors that are hidden between these 2 posts that I tried to pull out and couldn't. And so I can't see the glass doors. I can only see the slots where they belong. But this is on either side of this building, there's this accommodation for these glass doors. And I assume, like the rest of the house, that it's well done and properly done. Okay, the next, Will. This is the second of the modifications, and this is for the upper story windows. This was a garage that they're turning into a residence. correct? Yes, and it looks absolutely fine.
Which was approved in the previous application.
I think the residence was approved, but the addition of this, of
And the windows?
the windows, yeah, the second floor windows, or maybe not all of
The
them.
windows need
It was
approval.
hard to,
The garage it was approved that the garage is being made into a second residence.
Yes.
yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's move on. Now we are on the roof of the house, the main house on the ocean. And the third thing that they are applying for is a glass railing. Now, I know we can't see it in this picture. Go to the next picture, please. The views are spectacular, I have to say. So you can see there's one stanchion there, or one thing, which seems to me to be in place where the glass railing might be, but I mean, I climbed way up there and I couldn't find any glass railings.
I don't think they've done them. They haven't done it yet.
They haven't done it yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so I assume this is where is there another picture too? Oh, well, that's the view. I can only imagine that will be in keeping with the good taste of the rest of the house. But since it's not there,
Okay.
I'm not quite sure what
But that's they're applying for a modification to include the glass railings, is that the idea?
this glass railing
Okay.
that I assume is,
It will replace what you see there.
And do we have the architectural drawings that go with the
I
application?
mean, because
Yes,
this
yes, we
approval
have
was given in 2010. I think it's before any of us were on this board.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we have the history of the
You want to fill this in?
application.
Sure, come on up and sure. Just introduce yourself.
I'm Elizabeth Baldwin, Essex Hefner and Angel, Natalia Pasca for the applicant, Wainscott Colors. I'm here helping Britton out.
Hi, Beth.
Hi. So, as you know, this does have a history, 2010, and then there was an extension granted to rebuild the deck in that, along the water side, like kind, how it was originally approved in 2010. And as they were building it and rebuilding that deck, they realized that that second floor deck, they would prefer to have them be glass railings versus what they did to do the like kind. So that's the modification for that. They were approved for them as they built them, but they want to now make them glass. So they're asking permission to make them glass. They're not there. It's
Taking
not
away the
done yet.
railings that are
Correct.
there.
Correct.
Replacing them, yeah.
That's easy.
The other addition was, as you described perfectly, was the enclosing those two, looks like the breezeway with the glass, which they'll put in. They haven't put it in yet. That's why you couldn't do anything.
I mean, you can see where it's
Yeah,
going to be.
they
and
need
it
a
looks
recess
like-
for it, yeah.
Right, so they'll enclose that. And then the third was the garage was approved with the prior building permits. However, they are entitled to a second density unit on this property as per the subdivision. And she decided to make this this garage into the second density. And in order to accommodate the requirements for have it be a residence, they only just needed the egress. So that's what the window's for. It's to comply with code. Other than that, nothing else is changing. So it'll remain the same.
Modest, all things considered.
So it's pretty minor,
Maybe
but
we'll show just so that everybody can see, if you could show the survey.
There's the glass railing on the top left.
Mhm.
right, it'll still comply with all the code, all the height requirements. Nothing's changing as far as height or anything like that. It's just going from the wood to the glass.
Oh, so this is the extraordinary driveway. You can see it as it snakes by right below Wainscott Pond, and it's filled with wildlife and birds. And I mean, it was just the perfect afternoon, and it was absolutely gorgeous.
Beautiful, right?
Gorgeous.
I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The changes are not substantial. Excuse me, substantial.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I think it's completely in keeping with
Yeah,
what's there.
Me too.
Okay.
It's a wonderful property. So I would like to make a motion to approve this application as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously passed. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Yep.
Nice to see you, Beth.
Good to see you.
Okay, we did 11.
So we're to 404 Montauk Highway, Diane. This is-
Yep.
Okay. So still under certificate of occupancy, we're at 404 Montauk Highway, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-189-1-6.1. And this is 404 Montauk Highway in East Hampton, Diane.
Yes, this is that nice. Where's Hampton Road? And it's called Brass and Burl or Burl and Brass. It's very nice. It's a home furnishing store. And they have built a little shed that that complies with our resolution down to every inch, except our resolution calls for those doors and the doors on the rear of the shed to be white.
Oh.
And I think they decided somewhere along the line, the whole place is very discreet. And so I think they thought that perhaps these was a better idea. And I have to say, I think it looks very nice.
Is it a color or are they natural?
No, it's a color, it's paint, but it's
Matches
very.
the cedar.
Yeah, it matches the cedar and it's
What
very
is that white thing on that?
natural but I mean, in all other aspects, it conforms exactly with
Can
the
we go to
exception
that
of
first
the color.
picture again? What is that white bit across
Ransom?
why is that white?
Looks like there's meant to be a step there,
Ah,
I would imagine.
that looks odd to me. I agree about the color. I think this looks better than white.
Probably,
I think
it's probably a piece of PVC trim so that
Okay.
the rod underneath there. And
It
I
just
would
looks
imagine,
odd. That
I
looks
would imagine
odd,
they need a stoop outside of
Like a
that.
piece of slate. I wonder why they haven't
kind
painted
of
it.
landing. Mhm.
Is there there's another picture, right? Well, that's from standing from the highway, so you can't really see this structure.
Well, do we have to amend the
I mean,
resolution if it's to make sure that the color is reflected properly?
As-built CO.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, it substantially conforms with the exception of everything but the color.
And they can always change the color without our approval.
It's commercial, so.
I think it changed to commercial, I think that's part of our purview, so, I mean, I don't,
Do we need to know the color?
Well, it's in the
should.
resolution.
Oh, it's in the resolution?
but it's not this color, right?
White.
Uh-huh. And everything is exactly as is, doors painted white with transom windows painted white. So,
Right, but I guess what Chip is saying is, what is this color called, and should we include that, that we're, as built is not white? So we just need to be able to say what the color is.
Yeah, the
Windows are painted white, which is interesting. The
mullions,
Yeah, the mullions are
mullions are
painted
painted white.
So could we just approve it and then have them submit the color?
Well, it's for the CO, so we can do an as-built CO and I'll notify the applicant. If they decide to change it at any time in the future, it has to come before us for a new resolution.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so, all right, nothing else? Okay, then I would like to make a motion that we, that this substantially conforms to the conditions of our ARB approval and the resolution, and a certificate of occupancy can be issued with the understanding that they supply to us the color of the doors that was eventually chosen.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chris? Aye. Oh, so passed. Okay, terrific. Okay, last of these items. Item number 14, 3 Mile Harbor Affordable Housing Modification. Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-122-7-19 and 20. This is 286 and 290 3 Mile Harbor Road, East Hampton. Frank, this is yours.
Okay. Well, I think this is perhaps not there to the end of our approval, but
I'm close.
this is something to celebrate that the town has undertaken, and I'll say this up front. I give the town a lot of credit for for what they've created here. I think this has turned out quite well. So this is the 3 Mile housing complex on 3 Mile Harbor Road. There are more photos, correct? Okay. If you want to just run through these. So it's an application for a certificate of occupancy for this entire development. So I'll just walk you through it. I think it's pretty self-evident that these are housing units. I think we should also perhaps pat ourselves on the back for some suggestions we made about like the railings in white.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's all come together quite nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Some things don't seem to conform to one thing in particular that's the bus shelter we approved just a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
They'll finish painting it. I'm grateful that we extended the roof line. That's coming up from 3 Mile Harbor Road. It's unfortunate there's no representative for the applicant here. I'd like to know where that crosswalk was. I believe this used to be to the right of this walkway is where the bus stop used to be proposed. I don't quite know why there needs to be a railing there.
Is it for handicapped access?
It is, but why there as opposed to, because it goes all the way down the hill, you know? I think it may have had something to do with the bus stop. I don't know. It's there.
Or the grade? It's pretty steep.
Yeah. My comment about this part is I wish it weren't white.
Same.
It sticks out.
So,
I think perhaps if it were just gray.
Yeah.
I don't think we can hold up the CO for that. I think we can make some suggestions and requests to the town.
Been very amenable to our suggestions in the past.
Right. That's one thing. Let's go through the slides. This does conform to this is a playground. You know, it's
Nice.
fencing, this will weather gray.
yeah, why can't they continue with that look?
Yeah.
Well, they may have needed the metal for
They
some.
may have needed the metal for code. It's also commercial. This is the siding this is the fencing surrounding the septic treatment facility there. And, you know, it's good that they've screened it. It's noticeable. I think there could be and presumably there's not a huge budget left here to do some things. It would be nice. I suggest that maybe we can request that they put some screening,
low bushes
in front of that. Or perhaps even if it's not in the budget, perhaps the town could solicit some donations.
Yeah.
That's a great
to
idea.
screen that.
To get rid of the space between the fence and the ground.
Yeah, it's also, you know, you're driving up and it's just kind of a big wall.
It's two-steppy, yeah.
You know, it looks like a big wall. Keep going. So on the top of the fence, this is fine. This is the septic treatment plant. It's unfortunate the generator, I feel, sticks out in that green. Perhaps they could plant, those conifer trees will grow, those evergreen trees will grow, so hopefully that'll screen it one day. I kind of think this one kind of is what it is. I think that's the last slide. If you could go back to the second or third slide, Will, where I was mentioning something that we had right there, that we had approved. I don't know if anyone remembers that there had been proposed. I could go back and look in the drawings, but I was positive there used to be a walkway going parallel to the building on the right. Between the two buildings, you know, would go from the foreground off to the other parking lot. And we talked about there being a low retaining wall, and then we would put a split rail fence on top of it. I actually think this looks better without
Simple.
without the walkway.
Green space too,
Yeah.
which is nice.
I think the material palette worked out quite well. The gray the slate gray hardy board tiles, given what's being built here. I think it works quite well. And go, I guess, forward a couple of slides. One thing I would also request that the town do that I feel unfortunate if these heat pumps could use, I wouldn't want like a physical structure around it, but if maybe some like boxwoods could be planted to screen these. Because if you go to the next slide, like that one, it's just not
Mechanical.
it's just not. It'd be nice if that had even just some low screening.
I agree.
So I would like to propose that we approve this, but I also would like to have the board some input of things that perhaps we can suggest to the town.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea.
I think those are great suggestions.
Yeah.
Okay. So I could perhaps email the town after, or the board after this.
Yeah.
And we could just confirm.
Okay. Sounds great.
So who's got the cheat sheet here?
Right here.
Okay. I make a motion to instruct staff to notify the building department that this applicant has satisfied the conditions and substantially conforms to the ARB approval of the ARB resolutions. Do we really have to go through all 5 of them? Of the ARB resolutions, and a certificate of occupancy can be issued.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Aye. So passed, okay. So the items are greenery along the septic fence,
And
right?
maybe paint that railing.
Paint the railing.
On that walkway that was near where it used to be the bus stop.
Screen the heat units, right?
With
Screen,
some like low
screen
Right.
heat
plantings.
pumps, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we can work on that later. Yep. Okay. Last but not least, comments to the ZBA. This is Bluff Road Associates, Suffolk County Tax Map number 300-190-2-21, 325 Bluff Road, Narragansett. Chris, this is yours.
Okay. I think we remember pretty well the review that we went into in depth here the last meeting. The applicant is before us with some revisions to the house, and this is it just struck me. They presented some really beautiful nighttime renderings, which was addressing our concerns about how the lighting, the exterior lighting, and how that would be affected. It really reminded me of these surrealist paintings. So had to say it. But in summary, the house is very much the same in terms of massing and form and palette. It's still I guess we can move on from Rousseau and
Agreed.
And let's go to the palette of materials sheet. There's it's Indiana limestone wall panels, white stucco, glass, and white painted steel as the primary material elements of the house. They've also added white painted steel louvers in front of approximately 30% of the glazing that is on the east, west, and north, i.e. the most visible facades of the house. There's a punched window in a solid wall that was removed from the west wall. They took there's the palette of materials. You can see the stucco is on the lower left. The tall vertical panel is the Indiana limestone. The fascia and these louvers and frames are white painted steel. And as they described in the last presentation, their intent was to bring a sort of sandiness to this, to bring it, give it a bit of an effacement in a sandy beach sand environment, dune environment. So back to the changes on the west. In the west, not only they removed that punched window in the west wall, the stairwell wall was changed and dropped to be an angled wall with a railing coming down to 2 louver panels added to the west, 5 to the north, and 1 to the east in front of windows. That was the 30% of glazing coverage with those louvers that you see in the materials palette. And then last but not least, the exterior lighting concept was changed. There are 4 linear feature lights that were removed, and that's most visible in the before and after of the night views that we'll see. The number of exterior downlights in soffits and overhangs was reduced by 18. I believe we had 33 before.
So half.
And they've also showed the proposed small round side lights in the side of the swimming pool interior. So basically, the shape of the house and the material palette has not changed. The location has not changed. Nothing about bones.
Yeah.
What they've done is to primarily address the visibility of this house at night, and also how much the amount of open glass that you see here. So this is you've got a series of before and after. I think if you flip through them, well, you'll see the
That's before.
yeah. And if we zoom in on that, I think that's a revised view. How close can you zoom in so you can start to see some of these louvers happening? Next to the tall vertical limestone panel, just on the right there, right where the cursor is, that's a louvered panel. Over on the right hand side, that bank of glass way over next to the limestone, there's louvers there, and you can see them. You can see it's a subtle effect, but I think that you also see it as a mitigating the light that's glowing out of there at nighttime. So maybe we should flip to the Magritte views, and is that a before or after?
Before.
Oh yeah, that's the before. And you can also see the limestone panel, that vertical limestone panel, and the linear accent lighting that is on that. And in the proposed, that accent lighting is taken out. So you might have to flip back and forth a little bit because it's hard to, otherwise you don't really see them side by side. But if you go back and forth between the revised and the original and revised. So the shape is the same, the massing is the same, the architectural form, the contrast of solids and opening is the same with that mitigating buffer of the louvers. Before we get into a discussion of it, I think maybe the applicant somebody from the applicant
Sure.
Wants to.
And please, as you're going to talk about it, please introduce yourself so we have a record of who's here.
So my name is Carl Smith. I'm you'll remember me from last time, but I'm here on behalf of Leroy Street Studio. We're the architect for the project. And so, first of all, thank you for making time to meet with us again regarding 325 Bluff. We appreciate that comments have already been sent by the board to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And we felt that those comments kind of well captured the discussion at the last meeting. So thank you for that. In our previous meeting, we talked about our client's appreciation for the beauty of the dune landscape and how that drove our proposal. As discussed then, we feel that the proposal harmonizes with the landscape of the site and by extension with the intent of the historic guidelines, just as it regards the view shed, by reflecting the material palette of the dunes with the simple limestone walls evocative of the sand, by maximizing transparency by day, by retreating from the dune crest and reducing the area of lot coverage and restoring native vegetation, and by sitting low on the site with its flat roof kind of projecting less into the view from Bluff Road than an equivalent building with a pitched roof would, to say nothing of the current building. So during that last discussion, the issue of nighttime lighting was raised by the board and the visibility of that from Bluff Road. So that emerged as a major concern in that last meeting, and our intent here is to really address that issue and present how we've sought to address that issue. We've studied the issue. We've adjusted our lighting plan, as Chris described. We've made the louver adjustment to the glazing to try to mitigate light from the inside coming out. And yeah, we started by going to the site and going to Bluff Road and visiting at night. So in our first visit, we went on Labor Day weekend when a lot of the people were still, out. We walked up and down Bluff Road to try to get a sense of, the existing lighting conditions along the road. At that time, we observed that there were a lot of neighboring houses right along Bluff Road that were very bright. A lot of light coming from upper story windows, some with kind of lighting on the facades, and also street lights at the intersections with Bluff Road. And it was our observation that with those brighter light sources kind of up close to you as you walk along the road, our house at the distance that it sits back from the road was very difficult to notice, if at all. So we went back again, post-season, we went back on September 14th, and what we did, we wanted to get a sense of what our house would look like with all the existing house with all the lights turned on. So we tried to recreate all of the vantage points that we stood at during the daytime to photograph the location. Granted, the vegetation obscures the view, and we understand that the vegetation can't be kind of totally counted on because something could happen and that could change. But we tried to recreate those vantage points at night and then recreate them again in renderings before and after to study our lighting proposal in context. Not surprisingly, given the vegetation, it was very difficult to see our house. But we did find some vantage points where you could see it and you could see the degree to which it's visible, like as we came down the driveway, I think especially where the views where you could see the lights of the house. And we really came away from that feeling like it reinforced our sense that the distance of it from the road greatly, minimized the visual impact of it, even with all the lights on from the Bluff Road itself. Having said that, we heard you and we spoke to our client. I think it was a member of the board that recommended considering the concept of louvers. And we talked about that with our client, and she liked that as a compromise. Obviously she wants to preserve views out from the house, but at the same time, she understood the need to mitigate, nighttime light leaking, and she thought that was a good compromise to try to address it. So as Chris stated, we added louvers to cover 30% of the glass on the north, east, and west facades, the ones that are visible from the public way. Let's see.
There was also a very minor change to the windows on the east facade.
Yeah, we eliminated...
Swapping a couple of windows.
We eliminated one on the west facade and we made the window on the east facade smaller. We think those being on the lower level are going to be minimally impactful, but we did want to point them out. But when we located the louvers, we kind of started studying the spacing, and I know that the rendered view of all the material palette, you're kind of seeing the louvers straight on, so you see right between them. But I'm sure you guys are all familiar, you move to the side and then you see opacity, and it's only when you look straight on that you see through. And we tried to focus on locating those louvers at the transitions from opaque, solid walls to glass to kind of like soften that transition and the glare and the contrast at those transitions. We also tried to focus on locating louvers in front of places where there were partitions inside, close behind the glass, because it's been our experience that a lot of the light that you see from, beyond the property when you see a house at night with like floor to ceiling glass like we have is light bounced off of the wall surfaces. So we were trying to get those louvers in front of where those wall surfaces were close to the windows. We felt that the louvers was a good compromise to try to help mitigate the issue. And then we worked with our lighting designer to study the impact of the exterior lighting layout. So on the four feature lights, I think those do make the most dramatic impact on the before and after renderings, as you pointed out, Chris. It was a feature of the design originally to try to, showcase those walls. We think that the walls are beautiful. But in light of your concerns, our client was happy to just forego that aspect of the lighting plan altogether. So they will still be beautiful by day, but it was something she was just willing to let go of. On the downlights on the exterior, we worked with the lighting designer and kind of tried to dial them back as much as we could, but still provide for, life safety and, lighting at the entry doors. We did consider for a moment the option of, instead of recessed downlights in the soffits, changing to kind of shielded dark sky compliant wall mounted fixtures. But what we found when we compared the two is that the wall mounted fixtures, even when they're shielded and dark sky compliant, they will always spill light on the vertical surface of the wall. So if what we're concerned about is the visibility from off of the site and from any distance, those are actually more impactful. The recessed lights, the ones that we've selected, have a regressed light source. It's a few inches up above the plane of the soffit. So ideally, we think that at any kind of distance, you won't see glare from the light source itself. And they're really meant to make a small pool of light on the vertical or on the horizontal surface of the walkway. So we also selected a narrower beam spread than we originally had, just to ensure that they would never inadvertently spill light on the vertical surfaces, just to help control that issue. So we did, we eliminated 18, but we kept some just for basic, entry and exit lighting and that sort of thing. Let's see, what else did I want to talk about? Yeah, I guess the minor issue of the swimming pool, it was pointed out to us that the lighting plan that we presented last time didn't have any lights in the swimming pool. And we didn't want there to be any obfuscation there. It was the pool designer that specified the lights for the swimming pool, not the lighting designer. That's why they weren't there. But we added them just to clarify. It's, I think, 5 or 6 very simple, minimal LED pool lights. No dramatic color changing effect or anything like that. It's going to be very quiet and tasteful.
Around the perimeter of the pool, or?
They're in the near wall. So the pool is on the south of the building. Yeah. They're in the north wall of the pool. So they shine kind of southward within the well of the pool itself. Yeah. And I guess just a note on the nighttime renderings. Obviously, when we walk the road, it's very difficult to find vantage points with the vegetation the way it is currently, where you can see the house. But the reason we did the nighttime renderings up close, so we could really evaluate which aspects of the lighting scheme were the most impactful. And then we took them, as best as we could approximate the position from Bluff Road, and we just did them without vegetation, so that we would be, looking at the worst case scenario. Yeah.
So for the board, because we provided comments to the zoning board, and this is not technically an application before us.
Right.
So what are we tasked with today?
Providing new comments based on this revised application.
And are these comments going to go to the ZBA as well?
Yeah, that's what they're for.
It's for,
That's the purpose, yes. So it's comments to the client or the applicant, but really it's directing to the ZBA, who has never even looked at this project yet, right?
We think they're looking,
they're aware of it.
No,
but they haven't formally looked at it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's in a basket on a desk.
Yeah, it's on a pile. It's in a stack. It's like
they just
3 or 4 down in the stack.
They want final comments. That's what they want.
I will say, if I may, when we spoke to Chris following the last meeting, he encouraged us to reach out about having kind of a working session. And we understand there's not like a mechanism for a working session per se, but we wanted an opportunity to just come back to you and talk through how we're trying to address these things and have it be an open forum. We would welcome any input. We want to, be able to have a dialogue and address your concerns. So that's why we're here.
I think to a certain extent, this is kind of that working session. And I think it's a working session both for you and also for us as a board, because this is a very, very unique situation. And one which I don't know if if the board has really seen before.
Yeah, this property is like one of one.
Yeah.
In the town.
Yeah. I mean, we're taking a house, an application to build a house in a historic district, which if it were on Bluff Road, we would all have our ears blocked and we would be saying no.
Yeah, that's it. Understood.
and somehow to take it from being on Bluff Road to down in the dunes, way down in the dunes, on the, right behind the second of the double dunes, behind, just off the beach, and how that distance changes an application from a hard no to a yes. Is the distance? I mean, I don't know what else besides the distance and the fact that it's in a naturally landscaped setting versus a streetscape setting are those are the two changes that that happen to that they're essentially asking for us to say yes to that there versus no anywhere more
Site specific.
tied into the district. It's for us. I think it's asking us as a board to what extent do we encourage an expression of how times have changed and tastes and technologies have changed in the 100 years since the cottages were originally built, and to what extent do we consider that traditional architecture is still a living and ongoing tradition and is cherished by many, not only just for nostalgia reasons, but for any number of reasons of architectural and cultural expression. So it's a big question.
Yeah.
It's a very, very big question, and we're not going to come across this a lot, if ever again. So we're tasked with, again, going back to the code and saying, okay, specific code note saying that how we judge this is mitigated by its distance from Bluff Road, and yet how the bluff and the double dune is an essential part of the historic district. So there's a house there. There's a traditional house there, cedar shingle pitch roof, not as charming as the ones on the historic cottages, but it's there. There's basically, you're going to keep that house there. You're going to design a different house. You're going to have this house, or you're going to have no house. That's what is possible on this property. And so for us to look at this and say, okay, are we feeling it appropriate that the house is pretty much in no way addressing anything about the historic character of the architecture of the district, and it's actually trying to be more like the dune in its material palette and color palette, and ways that it's trying to be self-effacing.
So where do you come out on this?
Yeah, I'm really trying. And it's a beautiful house.
Yeah.
It's we understand it's a professional and personal passion for you and the client. On the one hand, I think some of the things that you say as ways that you're approaching the mitigation of and how you're approaching, trying to treat this sensitively in the dune are things that you're required to do. So those almost don't count as much as intentions to say, okay, I'm not building a pink house. I'm building a limestone house and a house that where the glass can reflect the sky and the landscape and things like that during the day and can be seen through. So I'm very torn because I love the house, and I think we all have expressed our appreciation of the beauty of the design. And it comes down to the last sentence in the comments to the ZBA overall, the board was complimentary of the handsome building design, but had concerns about its appropriateness for this very sensitive and important natural setting in the heart of the viewshed of the Bluff Road Historic District. So those concerns, although, you know, I think it's absolutely the right kind of moves that you've made to mitigate it. I don't know if the bigger question of a house of this character, judging by the standards that we're supposed to be using to scale, height, massing, proportion, arrangement of windows and doorways, material, roof form, etc. Those things that are specifically listed in the code, whether those, you know, how to mitigate between something that doesn't have the same massing, proportion, roof form, arrangement, and proportion of windows and
little apples and orangey.
How do we mitigate that by saying we're farther away here, we're in the dunes, it's not on the street. It's you know, we look at the other historic buildings that are in the dunes, and they're not self-effacing. They're actually, they're traditional architecture, standing proud as they are. You know, everything from the recreated radio tower, which is now the snack bar, to you know, the museum and everything else there. So
the thing I'm stuck on, and I appreciate everything you said, Chris, I agree. I think it's a beautiful home, but I'm stuck on this, you know, from our letter previously, that the board must consider how an application in the district would affect the character of the dunes and the views into and across the dunes from a bluff road and from public properties within and adjacent to the preserve. Board must also consider the fact that the current state of the vegetation along Bluff Road may be changed as part of a restoration project. So, I mean, I know this is deep enough in there that it's not likely to be seen from the road, but it's this other view of the house from the dunes, you know, sort of a lateral, rather than from Bluff Road south to the ocean, but, you know, and an east and westerly thing. I'm having a little trouble with that. I mean, I think that they did a great job to mitigate the lighting. I think that was, these are good choices. But it seems like its profile is still a little,
Yeah,
a little bit, you know, so that we would still be seeing it, you know, from
East of the west.
the parking lot at
Indian Wells.
Yeah, right. Atlantic is what I'm thinking, you know, that you can see it now, you know, so.
Let's hear from the rest of the board, Diane.
I'd like to hear what you have.
Can I just have one, I just want to make one comment on Elizabeth Baldwin again, Essex, Hefner, and Angel on behalf of the applicant. With regard to the code specifically, the code specifically says with this property, the view from Bluff Road. That's what the code says. So the mitigating, and I think the nighttime renderings that they show, even with the vegetation not there, which I think was part of what we wanted to show, was that you can't, personally, I don't think you can necessarily tell what type of house this is, as far as whether or not it contributes to the historic district as far as the other historic houses. But I think because of the distance, you can actually, it's not detracting from the view from Bluff Road towards the Atlantic Ocean, which from what I understand, I had conversations with Bob Hefner about when he was creating this district and drafting the legislation for this district, was the primary focus. And I know they actually went back and forth about whether or not to include this house because it wasn't a contributing house, but it was on in the dunes. And I think that was the primary focus, and why they did add it was and focused it on what, and put that specific, because that's very random language to have in a town code. So I think they really meant to say what it says, and that what is the view from Bluff Road. And that's it. So what impact from when you're on driving down Bluff Road, will this house have on the historic district? And I think you'd be hard pressed to say it really does have any impact on the historic district because it is so far away. It's going to be lower. Right now it's raised up on top of the dune. We're going to be pulling it back. We're lowering it. It's the flat roof. The dune in front will be rebuilt, so that'll be mitigating from, even though it's not necessarily a factor here, but from the beach side, you're mitigating that the impact of the house. So I think for the purposes of this specific property, and I think we all understand what a unique property this is not going to set any negative precedent for any of the other houses in the district as far as how it, them wanting to be a more modern type house. I don't think we're going to have that situation. But I think when you consider how the code was created, and I freely, if the board wanted to reach out to Bob Hefner, I'm sure he would be happy to discuss any, how this code was created, his process, why ultimately he included it, but why he specifically had that language included in the code, because I think the owner at the time was very concerned about impacts and going through, if he ever wanted to change his house. And I think that's why that specific language was put in there, because Bob wanted him to understand that, it's really about what you can see from Bluff Road. So I just wanted to.
Sure. I think in conversations with Bob said they really didn't think about it a lot. I mean, it was sort of like, oh yeah, that property. I mean, it wasn't.
I think because it just kind of ended it better, because then you get into the was that the Ocean Dune?
Ocean Dunes, which is a motel.
Motel, and so I think they kind of ended it that way. It made it square or rectangular block, but so I think that's why they really put that modifying language into the code, so to really make sure that it's less impactful from that view, because that is what the historic district is. It's from Bluff Road. It's the Bluff Road Historic District. So,
well, I think the fact that there is a house there now to begin with is an amazing thing, however that came to be. But I think that this house is such a vast improvement over that house. And I think the fact that it will be compliant, FEMA, and all of these other things that we've become to be much more aware of. I mean, I think that speaks very well for the intentions of everybody involved.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to bother anybody.
If I might speak to that, I mean, I know, and Chris, you pointed out that a lot of the kind of environmental mitigating factors that we introduced, we had to introduce. It's true, this has to be approved by, it has to go through an NRSP process, and it also has to be approved by the state DEC. So yes, all of those things are things that we have to do, but the alternative is to leave the house there. And the house there is, right on top of the dune. It's in the coastal erosion setback, and it's not compliant with FEMA, and it's not a resilient building. And it's much more visible than what we're proposing. So, we interpreted the spirit of our property's inclusion in the code as protecting the viewshed, so that some god-awful eyesore didn't get put up, in between the beautiful houses along Bluff Road and the ocean. And, I don't know what might come in the future. If this house doesn't go forward and the property were to be sold and somebody else would come before you, obviously, you wouldn't be approving some pink, 4-story monstrosity. It wouldn't be allowed anyways. But we do feel that our client, in good faith and with the same goals as the inclusion of this property in the code, wants to do right by the dunes, wants to do something that is self-effacing and that harmonizes with the landscape. That is, the same goal that's driving her to want to do what she wants to do there is, in our view, the spirit with which the property was included in the code. So when I say it that way, it's not that I don't understand and appreciate the value of the historic district and the houses that contribute to that historic nature. I don't believe that the house that's there right now really contributes to that historic nature. I don't think that it, detracts from it any less than ours would. It's so far away, you don't see it. We just want to do something that doesn't destroy the viewshed for the houses along Bluff Road.
Yeah, my interpretation of the language of this is that the house is not. It's the language is structured in such a way that allows for something different. That the house it's been stated here by our applicant, that it's to preserve the view shed. It's not explicitly stated that this house is supposed to fit in architecturally with the houses of
It's specifically a
Bluff Road.
non-historic property in the historic district. It's specifically listed in the code as a non-historic property.
Right. And so I don't think the board's getting tripped up on this, but I just want to reiterate that that this isn't it's not something that's stated that this is something that's supposed to look like it blends in with the houses of Bluff Road. It's obvious. This is something that's way down the road, that's separate from Bluff Road, its only connection to the Bluff Road Historic District is where the curb cut is to this property.
Well, and that it is part of the view of the kind of like,
sure.
rural character of the dunescape, which we don't want to destroy.
Right. So,
and that's a specific component of the code is the view across the dunes and toward the ocean. It's mentioned a couple of times in the code guidelines. So I think you've addressed it.
So, I mean, in terms of what's important to me as a board member and what I think are critical, important things to consider here are the following. It's minimal visual impact from public vantages, not just from Bluff Road, but places like Indian Wells Beach, from the ocean, from Atlantic Beach parking lot, and it to be related to that, to be very sensitive to the unique site for which it sits in. And a big part of that strategy is it's in the public's interest that this house sits very low in the dunes to have a low visual impact. I can't stress enough that if this were to be a more traditional house with a pitched roof, that I think this strategy, though it's almost sort of counterintuitive to think let's put a modern house in a historic district, I actually think in terms of achieving the goals of protecting the view shed and create a minimal visual impact in the dunes, I actually think that this strategy is the better one compared to a more traditional house of, what is the GFA in this house, like 7,000 or 8,000 square feet above ground. I can't imagine how large that would loom over in the dunes. So the flat roof strategy to me seems like the right one and a good one for this application. I think in terms of sitting within the dunes, I think the material selection of the limestone is about as good as we might get. I think it's going to be pretty sort of visually low impact. Something also that the board should consider if the Bluff Road were to be cleared and you'd see sort of down on this house. And I'm comforted by the architects and how they've presented this project and the care of which they've done this. What I'm getting at is that the roof may become a fifth elevation, right? So I'm not too worried about, I think the architect will take great care to, but I think the board should be cognizant of this, that it may be seen from above. And so it's not now, but at some point, things like roof penetrations, solar panels, just how, and particularly what kind of waterproofing is used on the roof. And if we ask it to be, if there's decking maybe put on the roof, that it's a nice roof. That's not some black EPDM roof. I'm not worried about that with this applicant, but the architects, but I'm just stating that for the board. So that's where I stand on this application. I support it. I think we all agree that I think it's a very elegant one, but to me, it's a compelling strategy, given what's before us in terms of the zoning, in terms of what frankly could be, which it could be much, much worse. And have a much greater visual impact from public areas.
I think the thing that's changed my mind about the house in a positive way was the application we just did for 121 Town Line Road. That is a similar location, and there's only 4 or 5 of these locations in all of East Hampton Town on the ocean. And that house sort of is a similar situation, that you can see it from afar, probably more clearer than you can see this house. But no one was complaining about that house. That was sort of, it's there, it's meticulously built and cared for, but
It's also in a very, it's not in a historic area, but it's in a very sensitive.
yeah, but the area is incredibly historic. It just doesn't have the designation. It's downtown Wainscott, if there's a downtown in Wainscott. So I've kind of come around to this. I'm a traditionalist, but I don't think a traditional house works here. The house that's there is very nondescript. I think when they formed this historic district, they struggled with what to do with this property. I think you've been incredibly receptive to our comments, and I get the sense you really care about this in a way that we don't often see between an applicant and the board. So I've come around to actually appreciate what you've done, and I would be in favor of it.
Thank you.
I also want to state something which is somewhat perhaps speculative, but something that the board and I think the town may want to consider, that we don't know where zoning may take us in terms of FEMA regulations. And I'd like to say that I'm on the side of us being resilient, but also it's possible that the zoning code, if this were to get tripped up, and sort of move rather slowly through the approval process of the boards, that the code could change and that the elevation requirements would go up. And this house would have to be raised, let's say, 3 feet in the dune. So I'm not asking for a quick...
The longer we wait, the worse it's going to get.
You're asking us to push it through quickly.
We're working on it.
It's something that's for the board to understand that could happen in the future. The requirements for elevation heights could change. It's not, if we have concerns about where things are and visually and elevation, things could change.
Yep.
Kathy, did you want to add any more?
I didn't want to add anything more. I mean, it's just comments. We're not
Okay.
approving
So I think you
this.
said that there's some support. There's quite a bit of support for it.
I think the lighting changes were significant.
I mean,
I think that's helped a lot.
We'll write a thoughtful letter to the ZBA, and
We very much appreciate it. I mean, it's very personal for us. It's very personal for our client, and our client is very personal for us. But also, I mean, it is a beautiful historic district, and we truly do want to preserve what's beautiful about it and not, play at odds with it. So,
but it's not the kind of historic district when you drive through and you say, "Oh, this is a historic district." It kind of surprises people that it's a historic district, because many of those houses are now blocked by vegetation. The view is blocked to the ocean, so it's sort of the historic districts in the town. I think it's probably the one that you have to really look for.
well, we appreciate your support.
Would it be possible to add some of your latest comments to a follow-up memo?
We
to
will
the
do a
ZBA?
new.
Absolutely.
We will do a new memo that reflects what happened here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you
Our
very much.
comments will change.
Okay. Anyone else want to talk? Who are the 3 young people in the back of the room?
They're part of our studio, yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other business?
That's it, right?
I'd like to make a motion
I'd
to
like to make a
adjourn.
motion to close this meeting. May I have a second?